Hey guys, Dev with Crime Hive, and we're continuing with the Fort Hood Army Base mysteries that are really occurring and ongoing. Really, there's so many different cases, and I want to talk about the most recent murder on base. Of course, I've had videos on Vanessa Guillen, Gregory Morales that really got the ball rolling with what is going on with Fort Hood. But I found another resource here. I'm on this site, Military Justice for All, really well put together, and it gives us a timeline of other cases, within the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm going to touch on those at the end. But first, I want to talk about the Brandon Rosecrans story, his murder, and then we'll get into these other ones here. And just to show you real quick before I do, this gives you some really good information here, and I'm going to cover some of these here that just cover. It's a really good database, if you will, that talks about just strange things, strange deaths, possible suicides or suspicious circumstances, what have you. And we're going to get into that. So again, before I do, if you guys like these videos, Dev with Crime Hive, subscribe to my channel. Also, hit that bell notification. That gives you updates when I come out with more videos. And let's get started with this story. So I'm going to move this over here. And so we're talking about Brandon Rosecrans, and he was found murdered on May 18th, 2020. So still very recent. I found a lot of different reports. There's kind of some conflicting information. Again, not going off of affidavits at this time quite yet, but this is definitely an ongoing investigation here. The report was that he was found, initially they thought he was found in his Jeep that was set on fire and he was killed. But from other reports, what I've learned is he was off base. He was about 13 miles off base. But so this article here really breaks it down a little bit better. So about 10:17 a.m. on a Monday, police had received a call about a body lying on the side of the road. And there's the address, and I've got a map. I'll point out to where each place is. And then at about 13 minutes later, they actually get another call about a vehicle on fire. So a burning vehicle, and it's not far from that other location. So we learned that the vehicle was actually separate from where the body, Brandon's body, was lying on the ground. So really interesting. I'm gonna give you a couple perspectives about Brandon's father, what he thinks. I learned some interesting things from his interviews with other media and journalists out there. So let's talk about this part here, on the map here. So I'm going to minimize this here as well so you guys can see this here. So you got Fort Hood right here, right? A lot of mysteries going on that we're going to talk about. You got Killeen, Texas. A lot of things happening right there, just right off the base. That's where a lot of people live. That's where a lot of people go. All these soldiers that come off base, they shop, they travel through here. Really big hotspot, if you will. Just outside of that, though, around Harker Heights is where this case really took off. So it's as you can see here, the first address here that I want to mention. Let's see. So the first one, body was at Fuller Lane. So here's where Brandon was actually found, right over here. Supposedly a really nice area. All right. So, you're kind of wondering, okay, why is he over here? What's the connection? As we're still trying to learn this and really figure this out. Burning vehicle right over here. So, clear homicide at this point. It's clear foul play. They're investigating it as a homicide. And here's what I learned from his father. He said a couple things here that I wanted to point out. Now, so the father's name is Thomas Berg. He's been pretty adamant about seeking justice as well, which obviously he should be. I mean, there's a lot of crazy things going on the base. So he mentioned a couple things though in this article that I thought was really interesting, and I was going to point it out here, that he actually thinks that his son was robbed and murdered. So he talks about it right here, and he mentions that he had no wallet, no jewelry, had nothing on him. Looks like they may have taken his iPads, iPhones, guns. So maybe a clear robbery. And we know that in another article, though, and this is where it's kind of interesting because he also mentioned in this article, KCBD, that his son was attacked at gunpoint a week before his murder. And he had mentioned that it was possibly the same person that may have murdered him. So somebody that he may have known, an acquaintance, not sure what this connection is yet. It's been, pretty isolated. I mean, the Army CID is not really saying anything. Obviously, it's a very closed, secretive case as it's ongoing. And you've got the father saying that he thinks that there are people off base that may have done this. He actually said this in another article. I don't have that pulled up, but he actually said that these people are predators preying on military personnel that are leaving the base. They know when they get paid, he said, and as soon as they leave, he thinks that there's some sort of group that may be targeting military. And so he, it's unclear. Obviously, we don't know if this is someone that is in the military that committed this crime. We don't know if it's linked to a group outside or if it's just some unrelated case that Brandon's at the wrong place at the wrong time. Still learning that, but I wanted to give you guys that information. I thought that was really interesting as we're still learning. Again, another tragic case that just continues to stack, and so that's what I wanted to lead up with this video. But the thing that I found that I think is really interesting here is this website again, this Military for Justice site, and it gives some really interesting stats, and we're going to go through some of these here. This is going to be more of an overview. I'm probably going to have to go into a more in-depth video that will cover some very specific cases from here, but I'm just going to kind of give you guys an overview of some of this. So really cool stats here that breaks it down. That, I mean, they're not cool stats, but in a way that organizes it for us to understand. You've got 134 stateside deaths, right? 146 deaths at Fort Hood since January of 2016. That's a lot. And then it kind of breaks it down. You've got Afghanistan, Iraq, but you've got the 134 stateside deaths. It actually breaks it down. You got 1 homicide on post. They updated with Vanessa Guillen. 7 unsolved homicides off post, right? 21 ruled suicide. 32 found dead on post. 16 dead off post. So on base, off base. You've got quite a few training accidents. That's also bizarre in its own way, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit too. A lot of things, a lot of random things here that we're going to get into here, though. Medical issues, 8 of those, 8 automobile accidents, a lot of automobile accidents as well. So as I go down here, I'm going to point out some of these. Again, 2016, first one that I want to mention here, really interesting. It's Devin, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right. It's Shuet. Devin, he was 35, found dead, ruled suicide. But it's really strange, and this is one of the things I want to point out here. As I pull these up, kind of gives you a picture, and so I like this site here. It kind of gives us some pretty good information here on what these cases are about. So Devin, he was serving infantry. As I was going through this here, it looks like he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So he was having some issues, but he was also adamant about it. I saw a video of him actually when he talked about, and it's actually at the bottom of this, he talks about when he needs help, he reaches out for help. And so it gets kind of bizarre because, this tells the story. I'm not going to get too in-depth in it, but essentially his wife, Tanny, is very adamant that this is possibly a homicide. She doesn't think it's a suicide, and she kind of explains why as you go through this article. One of the things I wanted to point out, though, that a lot of advocates are really trying to change is this 24-hour reporting waiting period. Pretty archaic, if you ask me. And I don't know if that's still changed to this day. But there's a lot of people upset because their loved ones go missing. They know in their heart that there's something wrong. There's some strange circumstances, and they're trying to convey that to the military police, and they have to wait this 24-hour period. And I think a lot of them are saying, well, hey, look, if you have these set of circumstances that show that this person's probably not just missing, on his own. There's something going on. There's maybe some circumstances we need to look at. They're hoping to address that and streamline that process so that authorities can start looking faster and start, pinging the phone and getting search parties going and really taking that more seriously. So first thing I wanted to mention was that in this case. Now, kind of a breakdown on the story there. Again, very overview of this, but what happened is husband had left. He was out in his vehicle. He was actually found in his vehicle, and this was several days later. He had just gone missing. And the military police deemed it suicide. They thought it was from asphyxiation, but a lot of weird things with this story because he had 9 stab marks on his body, and then he had this propane set up, and then a tube running from his vehicle from I believe the exhaust. So not sure if he was if he was trying different methods to commit suicide, or somebody was staging this. Somebody was trying to make it look like a suicide, and that's exactly what his wife thinks. And she's tried to get more information. She's tried to get the autopsy. She couldn't get the autopsy. Weird things like her husband's phone was deleted with all the messages, the history, all that kind of stuff, which is evidence. All that was deleted by the Army before she got that information. So when you start seeing these little things like this, these little red flags that pop up, it just kind of makes you wonder, was it a suicide? Of course, they have more information than we do, but there's a lot of strange circumstances that she gets into at this. So that's the first thing I just wanted to mention again, just kind of going overview on that. Another one that I'll go down here, I'm just going to kind of go through some of these here. So this was a homicide victim. This was in Alabama, okay? Don't think that's related to the base necessarily. This was also ruled as suicide, a lot of suicides, and it's really sad. And as you learn through some of these stories too, it sounds like there's not adequate medical and mental health resources that these soldiers have. A lot of family members have expressed this, and you're seeing that as you go through some of these. But we're going to see some that are really weird in here that I want to show you guys. So as you keep going down here, so you got some fatal auto accidents. Okay, and then you start getting to some of these. These are very strange. So found dead with gunshot wound off post. So click on this. This is Brian Reed, right? So it shows him, gunshot wound, and as you read through it, it's like, okay, the circumstances surrounding his death and official cause of death are unknown. So they don't know. Let's see. They reported there were no immediate signs of foul play, but an autopsy was ordered. So I'm seeing a pattern with this sort of thing here. You're seeing a lot of these cases just like this, and there's a ton of them where it's like they continue to say that there's no foul play, but they don't know what's going on, and then you don't seem to hear much about it from there. So what's going on? Is there is there some sort of drug ring on base? I mean, is there drug use? Is there a group or someone that is literally murdering people, making it look like a suicide? Too many strange circumstances to ignore, and that's why I'm sharing this, because I think we're going to get deeper in other videos, and I think there's going to be some interesting things coming down. I think we're going to learn a lot about this base, Fort Hood, and what's really going on there in the next few months, perhaps. So it just kind of depends on this investigation that they're talking about initiating here. So you've got self-inflicted wounds here, a lot of those here, and this is a timeline. This is all just in 2016, by the way, and you're going to see there's quite a few that. So you've got motorcycle accident, this one really strange. Okay, death unknown as well. This is Sergeant John Staub, if that's how you say that right. He was found dead. Again, they don't know. Unknown. All right. And what else about this? So unforeseen. I mean, family saying unforeseen. They don't know what happened. They're still trying to, get answers, if you will. Really bizarre. So you got that case. You got, as you keep going down through here, we're going to June. Really, really tragic. June of 2016. There was a training accident, if you guys didn't already know about that. The reason I want to mention this, though, is you would think it's just a training accident, but there's a lot of controversy on this because there was an army or a rainstorm, a really bad rainstorm, and it was flooding, and people really thought that the soldiers that were going on this training event, they were going out to do some training. They didn't think they should have gone out there because of the weather, and they thought the decision should have been made by the chain of command to not allow it. I understand weather. You have to train in all type of weather. I get that. It was so severe though that the call should have been made to really look after the safety of the soldiers. I mean, you don't need 9 people dying from a training accident. So it just shows the leadership that's involved here. At what level is it broken? It sounds like it's all the way at the top, and it's filtered through. You've got people making decisions, really poor decisions, that are getting soldiers killed. So, and this is one example in June of 2016. It talks about that story as well if you go through there. So again, really good resource if you guys visit that site there. But I wanted to mention that. But in the same month, so you've got those 9 that had died. You then have another fatal motorcycle accident, and you've got another gunshot wound. Okay, another weird. This is a weird one here. So as you go through this, you start looking at these, and okay, he was shot in a parking lot near the Sportsman Center at Fort Hood. Okay, again, they still don't know really what happened. It doesn't really say. It's just died from an apparent gunshot wound in the parking lot. And, was it a suicide? I don't have a lot of information on that. And I can certainly do some more digging and go through, go further on that. As I do go through some of these and type in their names and so forth and start to research, you'll find that there's some articles that have mentioned suicide on some of these people, but then some of the articles are deleted. Pretty strange. But what are your guys' thoughts on this so far with this resource here? Pretty crazy. Going through a lot of it, and so continuing through here, got some more people. Unknown causes, August 2016. So the list just goes on and on. Now, some of these I'll probably do another video on that were really considered other murder cases recently, but you've got some other suspicious deaths. Now, this is a really strange one too. I wanted to click on this one. This comes in November of 2016. You've got Dakota Stump. Okay, really young. Here's why some of these are weird. If you start reading through these, I really encourage you guys to read through these because it'll give you a more clear picture of why these could be really strange and bizarre. This one here was he apparently had gotten into an automobile accident and his vehicle had rolled. Now, what's crazy about this is his vehicle flipped 100 yards away from the roadway, and this happened October 10th. His body wasn't found until November 3rd. And it was actually right by the scene. I mean, it was about 100 yards away. And the mother was obviously extremely upset by this because she was like, these, investigators aren't even looking for my son. I mean, he wasn't that far. I mean, they could have done a search. They could have done a grid search. They would have found him. Maybe he could have been alive. Maybe they could have found him alive. This is another clear error on their part. Just their judgment is clearly off with their investigations here. And then there's got to be some changes because... And they're looking to make some changes. So the mother was trying to petition this Dakota's law, which would create a warrior alert so that information about missing soldiers can go out and the military can start taking this more seriously and not considering these people AWOL and things like that. Absence without leave, if you guys are wondering what AWOL is. I'm noticing a pattern with that a lot too. As soon as somebody goes missing, It's almost as if they're just, okay, they're AWOL, they're a deserter, instead of, maybe there is something suspicious here. We need to at least address that. Same thing here with these patterns I'm noticing is it almost seems that they're kind of scratching off these cases and then just, ruling it a suicide, or, it's just left as unknown cause. You always start with the investigation in mind as a homicide. Always preserving evidence, collecting evidence as if it could be a homicide. And then if the investigation reveals that it's in fact a suicide or even natural, so be it. You still investigate it as a homicide before it gets to that level of, maybe being a natural death, which some of these very well could be natural and medical deaths, but there's too many. It's too bizarre. It almost seems like there could be was there something used? Were there drugs involved? I mean, I hate to say that. I don't want to judge on some of these people, especially to family that may be watching these and friends. Don't know if these people use drugs. A lot of them just found unresponsive. Don't know if it's suicide. Unfortunately, a lot of military on this base seem to have mental health disorders and mental health issues, and they may not be getting the right treatment and the right counseling and resources to get through those issues. So that's just my take on that briefly. But again, share your guys' comments. I always, again, like to hear from soldiers on base, especially if you're on base there or you were kind of getting a feel for the environment, what it was like there. What are your thoughts about this base? I've heard some really good ones already. It's giving me a much better idea. And it's not looking good. Doesn't seem like a good place to be. I think there needs to be a lot of change. So we're gonna go through a couple more here, and then so you got this one really interesting here. Paige. Okay, she's 21. Lot about her case too. So she was another young soldier. This kind of leads back to the sexual harassment and sexual assault issues that are going on that are now starting to be addressed. With all these unreported assaults and harassment claims here. So right here, Paige, this talks about her experience. She was actually, this is interesting because they deemed this a suicide, but the family thinks it could be a homicide, and here's why. And here's kind of the interesting circumstance with this briefly. I'll mention she was supposed to go on leave on December 24th. She put in for it 2016, but it was denied. So, or no, she was actually found. This is where she was actually found unresponsive in her vehicle on Christmas Eve 2016, but she's supposed to take leave and be home, but her leave was denied, so she had to stay home or stay on base alone. And so you have some circumstances that could support possible suicide, but then this is where it kind of talks about her background. She was actually going to get out of the military, and let's see if I can find that real quick here. So if I look down here, she was supposed to get out in May, I believe, if I can find it. Okay, so she was expected to discharge in February of 2017, so not far off. So she, military believes she may have committed suicide just on Christmas Eve, but she was supposed to be out in February, like I mentioned, or February 2017. She had plans. She was going to go and do dental hygiene, I believe. She was going to go through dental hygiene school. She was ready to get out of the military. She was dealing with some pretty crazy issues with a relationship she was dealing with. She was trying to get away from. She did have some mental health issues. She had actually gone in and gone through some treatment, taken medication, that sort of stuff. But again, she was excited to get out of the military, yet right before, kind of similar to Gregory Morales. I mean, his was days before he was discharged, but here she is just a couple months before she's going to be discharged, and all of a sudden she's found in her vehicle, and they think that it was suicide. So that one I think needs to be investigated more thoroughly as well. There's some other circumstances that mention it, but again, I'm trying to keep it a little bit more of an overview because I could chat about this for at least another hour, and that would probably be too long of a video. I think in this case, I'll break that up into another segment, but I wanted to mention that. The big thing I wanted to mention though on this one is so right up here, where is this here? I wanted to mention she was actually sexually assaulted by her recruiter before she went to basic training. So that's what started this trauma for her. I mean, right on, And then she goes to Kuwait. She experiences some pretty traumatic things over there. It just keeps developing, and then she has a very unhealthy relationship with someone. A lot more in there if you guys want to read about that. But these things are going unreported. Another example of an unreported sexual assault that she had claimed had occurred. So I wanted to mention that one. Now, if you keep going down, January 2017, died of gunshot wound off post. You're getting Randall Anderson. I mean, there's so many of these, you guys. And this is why I'm showing this. And it may seem kind of redundant here, but look how many of these we're pulling up here. These are all, now, no updates on the outcome of the investigation and the cause of death ruling. They don't know. Another one, So this one, it says, let's see, one can only assume that the cause of death was ruled as suicide since there has been no mention of a homicide investigation in the months following. So that's kind of what people are assuming with these. The Army would say that they're actually, they've deemed this a homicide investigation. You're not seeing that with a lot of these. So, but even so, are these all, that many suicides? There's a serious problem going on here. Some of these people were reportedly happy, getting ready for new plans. Some people were looking to re-enlist. How do you have somebody with an apparent gunshot wound, as a suicide, and they were planning on re-enlisting? They wanted to go back into that environment. They were happy with that. So if I could pull that one up, I'll show you that one as well. There's just so many as we're going through there. And okay, this one, another crazy one. This one right here. This guy was actually a CID agent, so he actually does investigations. Okay, with he's a special agent with the investigative division there with the Army. So really crazy. Stands for Criminal Investigation Division. If you hear CID a lot, that's the Army Investigation Unit. And he was apparently found dead behind a building on Fort Hood. Okay, now again, this one here is really interesting. He leaves behind a clear message, apparently on these Post-it notes, these Post-it stickers. He says, the wellness of our agents and helping to create a support system and culture for positive mental health for our special agents is of the utmost importance to the command's senior leadership. So this could have been a suicide. Doesn't sound like there was anything that we know of that would be considered a homicide. But again, when you have so many of these, with all the inconsistencies in these cases and families not getting answers and then being fed information when they learn it's other information, it was wrong, that information was wrong, it was false, you almost need to start over with all of these investigations. Would you guys agree with that? Start completely over with each of these. They're suspicious. They need to be investigated as a homicide. Who knows what else is going on here with these cases? Who knows? What do you guys think about all that? Now, a few other things I wanted to mention here. As you keep going down, fatally shot in a clean, unsolved homicide right here, right? Justin Lewis. Okay, like I said, probably need to do another video on these just because but I'm showing you so many examples. All right. He was just dead on April 18th, 2017. Gunned down in the middle of the night, and no one was able to find out why. Unsolved. All right. Another unsolved case. Same person? Is it somebody on base? Is it somebody outside base? Is it a group that is targeting military? Very sinister things going on here. Another example, and I'll have to go more in depth on some of these because there's just too many. If I were to go in depth on all of these, you guys would be here 3 hours with me. It would be. Look how long this is. But we continue to go down. 2017. you know, you're getting a lot, and I like how it's broken down. So you're getting some with, you know, you got the gunshot wounds. Those ones are really suspicious to me, and I just find some of those really odd. Some, you know, passed away unexpectedly. Some do have illnesses and medical issues. Non-combat related incident in Iraq. It breaks all that down, and then, you know, it goes into the more recent ones, which I think I want to do another video on as well. Cleveland Lewis, unsolved homicide, right? You guys seeing all these names? I know a lot of you guys wanted this information, and this is it right here to give you guys a much bigger picture, a broader picture of all the things that may not have made it in the news, or that didn't get much attention and was just kind of swept under the rug as you're going through. Just look at this, all the people that are dying over there. And so let me know if you guys like me to do a more in-depth on some of these other unsolved homicide ones, you know, like Freddie De La Cruz. Gosh, that's the last one I think I'll pull up real quick here and just show you guys this here. So, you know, this was in a Texas apartment complex, and I gotta get out of this here. Wants me to, oh, that's a weird one. I don't know why it wants me to buy things now. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of that. And just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. Again, the Brandon Rosecrans story. Let me know your guys' thoughts. This is Dev with Crime Hive, and I will be back with another video in this case and other cases that I continue to follow. You guys take care.